The first results of an ongoing EHEDG membership survey conducted by the EHEDG main office shows us that apart from the EHEDG guidelines, certificates and the training offerings, many EHEDG members greatly value the EHEDG business opportunities. And that is exactly what this interview today is all about. With us today is Jack King. He's a process line manager at Robroy Industries, a EHEDG company member based in the United States. Jack, nice to have you with us. Can you please first introduce your company to us? What do you do?
Robroy Industries is a privately fourth generation owned company. They're based in Pittsburgh, and then they have two divisions. They have a division in Texas, which is the one that I work with, and then there's also a closure division that's in Michigan. And if you look at the history of Robroy Industries, we've actually, as a 115-year-old company, for the last 50 plus years, we've been a leader in products that were designed specifically for use in very corrosive environments.
When it comes to corrosion material, corrosion-free material, did you see any new developments that might be interesting to you?
We've seen a number of things going on, including the increased use of stainless steel. So a lot of people were using stainless steel because of its corrosion-resistant characteristics. We looked at it and just kind of made sense to look at, should this be something that we should get involved in?
Now, your company produces electrical raceway systems, conduit systems that are widely applied, particularly in the United States, to power up machinery in all kinds of industry settings. Now, how did you come up with a new market for this product?
That one of the first things we did is we looked at some of the market segments for people that were using stainless steel. And obviously a very big one was the food and beverage industry. And so we started talking to different companies in that space. And what we discovered was that when it came to raceway systems, there was not really a good system that addressed hygiene at all. And so historically, what was happening is people were using stainless steel, and most of the products that they used were designs that were for their traditional installation. So they're 100-year-old designs, and they were not at all hygienic.
Okay, so you saw an opportunity there. And what did you do next? What was your next step?
Candidly, early on, one of the things we did is we reached out to EHEDG, and we actually had a number of meetings with Mark Morgan. So Mark's your representative in Tennessee. And so we had a number of meetings with Mark, and Mark helped us, through that discussion as far as some exploration about what's out there and some of the requirements. And that was one of the things that really helped us as we started to think about from a design standpoint. So we used the Document 8 as a guide, the EHEDG Document 8, as far as what are the types of things that you want to look at from characteristics of hygienic systems.
What did you learn by becoming an EHEDG member, talking to EHEDG experts and looking into the guidelines?
We discovered that there was a lot of things that were very different about electrical raceways, that people oftentimes did things because there was not a solution that gave them both the electrical safety that they would need and the hygienic. They had situations where they would choose one or the other, but they didn't have both. And some examples are, we have some customers that we know that because of the fact that there was no good sealing, or you had exposed threads when you had rigid conduit, they actually weld connection points together. So they go in and they permanently weld them, which is a problem in the United States because it actually is against the National Electrical Code. So that was one example of where people were making a decision because they didn't have a choice. So we did a lot of work with Mark. Mark helped us. And in fact, Mark came in and trained our whole team on the EHEDG training and gave us some, design. And we spent a day with him in our facility and went through this. This was all obviously pre-COVID.
Why do you think that many food processing companies miss out on that part of these raceway systems when it comes to hygienic design?
I think what happens is most people, the expectation is from an infrastructure standpoint, they don't think of it in the same way that they do the actual processing equipment. And the other thing is, because they don't necessarily think about it, the idea is, well, if I buy stainless, I'm probably okay.
Did you actually readjust your design of your products based on the input that you received from EHEDG?
Yep, we absolutely did. So we had, as I said, we talked to Mark a number of times, and we actually met with Mark and some of the things specifically on that EHEDG guidelines, around our circular gaskets, our controlled compression design. Those are things that specifically ended up being key design features of our product based upon the guidelines and conversation with Mark. And Mark was very helpful. We had some early generation prototype samples, and he gave us feedback based upon the standards and his understanding of standards and that kind of stuff. Because at this point, again, there was nobody in that space with our type of product. So Mark was really very helpful to help us kind of understand, how from a hygiene standpoint, the standards would typically be applied and what the types of things that people would look at. And without question, there was things that we did from a product design standpoint that were directly related to the feedback and guidance to the standards and Mark specifically.
Can you give us an insight in the time to market? How much time did you spend on development, and when did you decide to go for it?
We've spent several years in development. Mark has been helpful along the way in helping us understand the EHEDG guidelines. We looked at the documents, document 8, to get some feedback. His counsel on that, understanding of the guidelines, helped impact our design. Our final product looks like it does, partly as a result of trying to make sure we comply with those guidelines, because we understood that EHEDG was a well-respected global entity in terms of hygiene. So that was something that we looked at from a design consideration. So those were some of the things that happened along the way to go through and make sure we ended up with a product that would really meet the needs of both.
Well, inspiring story. This all happened a few years ago, so you're just starting up to conquer this new market with your newly adapted products. In the meantime, you also decided to continue to be a EHEDG member. And why is that?
We decided to stay with EHEDG specifically for the relationship and the possibility of being able to do some collaboration. We did actually have some conversations about doing some type of joint training. We actually gave, and I'd have to look back at my notes, but we actually put together some proposals as to where we could help collaborate, because electrical conduit systems are not common in Europe. As you know, it's much more common that it'll be cable and not rigid conduit. So we actually did some proposals as where we could do some joint thing. But I think if you look at a lot of the companies even that we do business with, that are key in the food and beverage, they're big global companies. So many of them are members of EHEDG themselves, and having an affiliation and being able to access the information from EHEDG is important to us to be able to just stay aware of what's going on in the hygienic field and what are some of the trends and some of the concerns. So certainly from that standpoint, we see value in an ongoing relationship with that.
Thank you, Mr. King, for providing us with this insight in how EHEDG can help companies to develop and adapt their products for new markets.
And thank you. Thank you for your time this morning. It was a pleasure.
Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, I might have an interesting story to share as well, just send us an email at editorial@ehedg.org and we'll come back to you. Have a great day. See you next time.